Hello there everyone, and welcome to Prager FU, the series where I dissect and debunk the paid shill bullshittery of the fucking dreadful YouTube channel known as PragerU. And then I say, hey Prager, F you! God, that's so fucking clever! And today I will be mansplaining masculinity to a misandrist pseudo-femare tradcon. Yeah, this is happening, motherfuckers. Strap yourselves in, as I explore the PragerU video entitled Make Men Masculine Again, which is a terrible fucking title, and as with everything at PragerU, even video titles have to suck Donald Trump's tiny orange todger. Anyways, it's presented by an idiot called Ali Stuckey from CRTV, so this is going to be all kinds of wrong.
Rape, murder, war. They all have one thing in common. Men.
Oh my fucking god, the first sentence in and it's ridiculously incorrect. Each of the issues cited here, rape, murder and war, have a vast array of factors explaining why they exist and why they persist, all of which would be too long to go into in this video, but suffice it to say, capitalism plays a big fucking part in it. Not that PragerU would ever tell you that because, you know, they are the very definition of bootlickers. But the main point here is to say that while men have engaged in all of the things mentioned, so have women. So you're just wrong, Prager. Also, where is the outrage from the MRAs here? If a feminist had said any of this, you would have never heard the fucking last of it, but because it's a right-wing shitpit saying it, they'll focus on, I don't know, a Gillette commercial or vegan sausage rolls, or whatever fake fucking outrage bullshit they've got going on at the time. What a bunch of pathetic, spineless cockheads they are.
Aggression, violence, ambition unchecked by conscience, all the stuff of toxic masculinity, right? And the solution is obvious. Make men less toxic. Make men less masculine. Make men more like women.
Oh, for fuck's sake, right. For the millionth fucking time, the concept of toxic masculinity does not refer to the totality of masculinity, you fucking idiots. Toxic masculinity is a portion of typically male behaviours and social attitudes which harm everyone. So for you to equate getting rid of toxic masculinity as getting rid of all masculinity and replacing it with femininity is either a straw man argument or a sign that for you, masculinity is bad and femininity is good. And as I'm pretty damn sure you would not subscribe to the latter, I'm going to say it's the former, and therefore point out that your argument is fallacious, you fucking arsehole.
But I'm here to tell you that that way of thinking is not only wrong, it's dangerous. Here's why. When you try to make men more like women, you don't get less toxic masculinity. You get more. Why? Because bad men don't become good when they stop being men. They become good when they stop being bad.
Well, it's good that no one's trying to make men into women then, you dishonest piece of shit.
Aggression, violence, and unbridled ambition can't be eliminated from the male psyche.
Firstly, as with your earlier examples, aggression, violence and unbridled ambition are not limited to men. Women get that shit too. And secondly, nobody says that you can completely eliminate any of these things from humanity. It's about checking the destructive power that these forces exert on the world. It's about holding people accountable, for fuck's sake. I thought conservatives were all about personal responsibility, but no, when it comes to toxic masculinity apparently, no, then it's just a free-for-all of, oh, who cares if they rape, murder and pillage, let's just fucking go with the flow.
Aggression, violence, and unbridled ambition can't be eliminated from the male psyche. They can only be harnessed. And when they are harnessed, they are tools for good, not for harm. The same masculine traits that bring destruction also defeat tyranny.
That is true, but I do have to question why you showed an American flag there, because America doesn't defeat tyranny. It fucking loves tyranny. In fact, tyranny is one of America's most successful exports.
The traits that foster greed also build economies.
Ah, some good old-fashioned boomer capitalist bullshit from PragerU. What a surprise. Look, greed doesn't build economies, you dickheads. The blood, sweat and tears of the working classes builds economies, builds greatness, builds wealth and prosperity. That wealth and prosperity is then stolen by the greedy, including the kind of pricks who fund Prager University, and they hoard that wealth unto themselves, leading to the truly disgusting inequalities that we currently see. That is why I'm so glad to see the boomer economy in its last throes. In fact, the one good thing about Dennis Prager continuing to live long into his dotage would be that we would get to watch his beloved economic system crumble in front of his very eyes, which would be enormously satisfying.
The traits that drive men to take foolish risks also drive men to take heroic risks.
And women, for fuck's sake. Look, none of this is uniquely male, none of it. And so far, you haven't even begun to address toxicity, almost as if you want your audience to believe it doesn't really exist, you dishonest bastards.
The answer to toxic masculinity isn't less masculinity. It's better masculinity.
Yes, that's the point. Nobody is calling for less masculinity, but for better masculinity. However, what comes next suggests that your grasp on what better masculinity is might need a little work.
The answer to toxic masculinity isn't less masculinity. It's better masculinity. And we know what that looks like. It's a young man opening the door for a girl on their first date.
You should probably just do that for people in general. To do it just for women enforces a rather sexist trope that I really can't be bothered to get into right now. But let's just say, if you are in a position to hold the door open for someone, just hold it open. It's the polite thing to do.
It's a father working long hours to provide for his family.
Right, so you think that the greed of capitalist bastards, forcing men to work longer and longer hours in a position of wage slavery, keeping them away from their families, is somehow a part of building a better masculinity? Wow, you aren't just licking the capitalist boot anymore, you're full on deep-throating it, all the way so you can lick the fucking heel.
It's a soldier risking his life to defend his country.
Which again, the US Army does not do. They enforce American imperialist hegemony around the world. I'd say that was pretty toxic actually, but I get that PragerU loves imperialism, so yeah, PragerU can fuck itself sideways with a rusty fish hook.
The growing problem in today's society isn't that men are too masculine. It's that they're not masculine enough.
Well, insofar as you have defined masculinity at all, which isn't very deeply really, you have defined it by traits like rape and violence. So please do tell me how you can possibly justify under that definition that men aren't masculine enough. Do you think there isn't enough rape and violence in the world? Would you prefer that there was more rape and violence, perhaps? Look, the problem in society is not that men are or aren't masculine. It's that society's definition of masculinity is far, far too narrow and strictly enforced. If we just chilled the fuck out and allowed for a much more tolerant view of the range of masculine types, we would all be much better off. I mean, PragerU and their tradcon allies would fucking hate it, but then again, that's just another positive as far as I'm concerned.
When men embrace their masculinity in a way that is healthy and productive, they are leaders, warriors, and heroes. When they deny their masculinity, they run away from responsibilities, leaving destruction and despair in their wake.
It is pricks like you, Prager, who are the ones trying to deny men their masculinity. It is the arseholes at Prager University, quote-unquote, that demand that men conform to rigid stereotypes, leaving men on the outside of that, being denied their masculinity. It is you that are not letting men be men, quite literally in the sense that you don't want trans men to be allowed to identify legally as men, you evil bastards.
The consequences can be seen everywhere. 1 in 4 fathers now lives apart from his children.
Well, at least part of that is down to public policies pushed and supported by PragerU. For instance, the massive private prison industrial complex in America, which separates fathers from their children for relatively minor infractions. So maybe PragerU could stop licking the boot and actually try and reform that shit. Another example would be the aforementioned capitalist greed, which forces men into working long hours for low wages, and we know from research that financial stress is one of the key contributing factors in divorces. So again, if PragerU could not support the rampant greed which is tearing society apart, that would just be super awesome. Thanks, guys.
And children who grow up without a dad are generally more depressed than their peers who have a mother and a father. They are at far greater risk for incarceration, teen pregnancy, and poverty.
Sneaky bit of homophobia there, but I didn't miss it. She said mother and father. And of course that isn't the full picture, because we know that it's having 2 parents, regardless of gender, which helps to ease children away from those problems. So a father and a father, or a mother and a mother, would be just fine too. But of course not in PragerU Fantasyland, but you know, fuck PragerU Fantasyland.
Of all the rocks upon which we build our lives, family is the most important. And we are called to recognize and honor how critical every father is to that foundation. That was said by then Senator Barack Obama in 2008. If we are honest with ourselves, he went on, we'll admit that too many fathers are missing from too many lives and too many homes.
It's interesting that you would quote from Barack Obama there, considering how much you'll fucking hate him, but whatever. Yeah, Obama may well have a point here, but he sure as fuck isn't a great example of it. He grew up without his dad and went on to become president, for fuck's sake.
Healthy families and strong communities depend on the leadership and bravery of good men. Yet, the current trend is to feminize young men in the hopes of achieving some utopian notion of equality and peace.
Oh, what a fantastically scientific graph you've got there, Prager. Jesus, the idea that anyone takes these claims seriously is beyond ridiculous at this point. Anyways, as to what you say there, femininity in men is widely mocked and derided in society, so what the fuck are you even talking about? Your entire argument is utter bullshit.
Here's a secret that every woman knows. Women want real men. Men they can count on and, yes, look up to. No amount of feminist theory will change that.
Different women prefer different things in men, obviously, so you're just talking shit at this point.
Every woman I know wants a strong, responsible man. That's not a consequence of a social construct or cultural pressure, it's innate.
Some things are innate, but some things are learned behaviours and social attitudes. So again, shut the fuck up with your pseudo-scientific bullshit.
The devaluation of masculinity won't end well because feminine, passive men don't stop evil. Passive men don't defend, protect, or provide. Passive men don't lead. Passive men don't do the things we have always needed men to do for society to thrive.
The problem here is that your definition of a feminine man is one who is passive, which is not necessarily true. So again, you're talking shit.
And in a world of wickedness, weak men are nothing more than enablers of wicked men. Rape, murder, war. They all have two things in common: bad men who do the raping, murdering, and warring, and weak men who won't stop them.
So again, you're saying here, rape, murder and war are masculinity, and that we somehow need more masculinity, and for that, you are a monumentally, spectacularly evil person. And on that bombshell, let's wrap this up, shall we? Now, PragerU are responding to what they see as a problem, which is the changing views of gender in the world today. And they see this as a problem because it clashes with their religiously inspired bigotry. And at the core of PragerU's problem is that they think that gender has somehow changed, which it hasn't really. It's just that rigid gender stereotypes have forced people to live in unnatural ways that they don't actually want to live. It's just that they were sort of forced to. Whereas now they're not forced to. And so that's the change that Prager have perceived. In the same way that you'll hear absurd people say, oh, where did all these transgender people suddenly come from? Well, they didn't suddenly come from anywhere. They were always there. It's just that they had to live a lie before, and now they don't. This is, freedom, which PragerU claim to support, but in reality they don't actually support freedom at all. Because the tradcon view of the world espoused by Prager is fundamentally anti-human. It seeks to force every person into one of two very small gender roles, the ultra-masculine man or the ultra-feminine woman. It denies to everyone the freedom to exist outside of those tightly controlled parameters, which is so fucked up because most people fall outside of those roles in some way or another. So please don't listen to the garbage at PragerU. Live your life the way that suits you, not the way that religious bigotry dictates you should. PragerU, you should be fucking ashamed of yourselves for pushing this damaging, outmoded, antediluvian, gender-restrictive bullshit. Oh, and Prager, F you. God, that's still so fucking clever and funny. And I'll leave you all with the beautiful words of E. American Johnson from the Non-Compete channel on the topic of toxic masculinity. I've left a link to the full video below. Please go and check that out, and go and check out the channel more generally because it's very good. And I will see you next time.
Toxic masculinity is something very specific, and it's from a place of self-abuse, okay? It's from a place of fear. It's from a place of anger. Whereas healthy masculinity comes from a place of self-confidence and strength and compassion. Masculinity is not inherently toxic. Toxic masculinity is a specific set of behaviors and traits and social patterns. And these thoughts and behaviors hurt us just as much as they hurt women and people of other genders. Toxic masculinity makes me a victim, and it makes me into an abuser. It makes me feel and think and do things to this day that I do not want to engage in. Patriarchal society does give me advantages. I absolutely have privilege as a man, and I do have power over women in ways that women do not have power over me. But that power and that privilege comes at a great cost, and it's not a cost that I want to pay anymore. I don't want to hurt women. I don't want to push people down to elevate myself. I don't want to have this elevated status in society, because the cost that I have to pay for it is basically pain and lies and having to hide my true self and my true identity, and I'm fed up with it. I don't want men to commit suicide at a rate that's at least 2 times higher than women. I've had 5 male friends commit suicide in my life. I don't want to have to bury my emotions. I don't want to have to hide my pain and my anxiety and my depression from other people. I don't want to feel like being who I am makes me weaker in the minds of other people.